cliffs to climb here, but we're going to get there. Let me just first of all thank Jill for the fabulous job that you do in this state and for this party. It's been an honor to get to know you and meet you over these last few months. And I also want to thank David Bonior, who is our Northern Nevada chair up here. He's done a great job for us. He's a fabulous state representative. We're very fortunate to have him. Very fortunate to have him. I mean, he's not only leads in the legislature on environmental issues and a lot of other things, but he's been canvassing, he's been going door to door in the snow for us, and he's just been absolutely fabulous. Speaking of canvassing and going door to door in the snow, I imagine most people in this room have done some of that. You wouldn't be at a Democratic event if you didn't engage in that. Reminds me of a story one day where Harry Truman was going door to door, and he knocked on this door, and this grouchy woman opened the door, and he stuck out his hand. He says, "I'm Harry Truman, I'd like to have your vote." And she looked at him and she says, "I know exactly who you are, Mr. Truman, and I wouldn't vote for you if you were St. Peter himself." And without missing a beat, Truman said, "With all due respects, ma'am, if I was St. Peter, you wouldn't be in my district." A couple of words about John Edwards, because he really is a special person, and I think a lot of people don't realize about his background. He came from a very humble home. His dad had to borrow $50 to get him and his mom out of the hospital. When he was born, they lived in a 2-room mill house across from a mill where his dad worked for 37 years, and his grandparents worked. John went to public schools. He worked a little bit in that mill. He moved from Milltown to Milltown with his parents. He studied hard, got himself a good education, became one of the great lawyers in this country, defending working men and women in this country against big multinational corporations. And he served, of course, in the United States Senate, and he's running for presidency. I got to really appreciate John after the 2004 race, and what really drove me to him, what really got me excited about John Edwards, was what he did with his life. He established the Center on Poverty and Work Opportunity at the University of North Carolina. He came out here in Arizona, Montana, Nevada. He worked to raise the minimum wage. He helped get it on the ballot. I mean, people making $5.15 an hour, trying to live on $5.15 an hour. How incredibly bad is that? It's like that old Abbott and Costello routine where Bud Abbott says to Lou Costello, "If you got $50 in one pocket and 100 in the next, what do you got?" Costello says, "Somebody else's pants." You can't do it on that amount of money, and John instinctively knew it, and he grew up with that kind of a background. He established a center program in North Carolina in a very poor county called Greene County, because not very many kids were going to college. He said, "Listen, you go to college, you work 10 hours a week, we'll pay for your books and tuition." He funded the program with a few other people, and over the last 3 years, they've had about a 30% increase in that county. When Katrina hit, he went down there and he worked. He spent a lot of time working down in Katrina. He brought 700 kids from their spring break, took them down there, and they worked a week to rebuild the neighborhood. I mean, he's a man of action. He works on the rights to organize, 250 different separate organizing drives, from housekeepers to teachers to nurses to iron workers to auto workers, you name it, to janitors. He's been there on the lines working with them. Picket lines, hunger strike, he's been there. So that's what drew me to John Edwards. He's a very special person in terms of practicing what he preaches. He not only walks the walk, he walks the walk, he just doesn't talk the talk. So I'm here today on his behalf. I'm going to be very brief because I noticed it said 3 minutes, and I probably extended my 3 minutes already. But on issue after issue, John has led in this race. That's one of the things that we're very, very proud of him on. He has put out a book, you can get it on our website, johnedwards.org, Real Change for Real Solutions. We were the first one with the Universal Health Care Plan about a year ago. We were the first one to come out with a global warming plan to reduce greenhouse emissions by 80% by the year 2050. Tax plans in here, new trade policy is in here, good education programs that I don't have the time to talk to you about, they're all in here. And he's driven this race on issues. And for that, I think we can be really grateful for him for being in this race for that particular issue. And finally, let me conclude with this. This is all fine and good, and Senator Clinton, Senator Obama, they have great programs as well. And by the way, Governor Richardson, who worked for me, by the way, when I was the whip, he was my chief deputy, had a great program as well. Great issues, Governor Richardson. I'm going to make him a senator. He's not running for senator, is he? I think he's going to let Mr. Udall run for senator. But anyway, this doesn't mean a lot if you can't change the culture. And you talked very eloquently about the problems in Washington today. The problems in Washington is we got a corrupt and a corroded system. We got a lot of good people there, but they're caught in a very bad system. And until we break that system, and John Edwards is determined, until we break that system and take on some of the big multinational corporations, the pharmaceutical companies, the health insurance companies, the oil industry, we're not going to change a lot of things, or it would have been changed already. Historically, Teddy Roosevelt did it 100 years ago. He took on the trust and he beat them, the banks, the railroads. In 1932, FDR did the same thing, right? He took on the big corporations for working people. We're at that point again, ladies and gentlemen. We need someone to stand up. John has beaten them time after time, year after year in the courts, and he can do it. And John not only is the most progressive candidate, he is the most electable candidate, if I may say so. If you look at the CNN poll, he beats Huckabee. He beats Huckabee by 22. He beats Romney by 25. He beats Giuliani. He beats McCain by 8. And McCain, by the way, since it was raised, is going to be a very tough candidate if he gets the nomination. He's got an incredible story. And he'll be very difficult to beat. John Edwards can beat it. He won in a red state, North Carolina. John Edwards can win all over this country. So I'll just close with that. And thank you so much for having all of us here from the Edwards campaign. And we look forward, by the way, we love, this is an incredibly beautiful area. I was driving around today with the snow and the mountains, and boy, I'd sure love to live here. My father-in-law used to teach at the University of Nevada back in the 1950s, if you can believe that, a long time ago. And then we had fond family stories and memories of his and my wife's visits here during those years, and I can understand why they loved it and appreciated it so much. So thank you for having me. God bless you. And good prophecy.